Hey guys, I'm Brian Goff, half of Goff Cosplay, and while we were at Anime Iowa this past weekend, we got a lot of compliments on the wing setup that we made for the Dizzy portion of our Kai and Dizzy Kisuke Guilty Gear Xrd Rev 2 outfits. Specifically on Necros and Undyne here. A lot of people seem to be pretty impressed with how they looked, how they turned out. I know I was. I really enjoyed the way that the final product came along. And I got a lot of questions about how they were constructed and just how impressive they appeared. But when I started to show people the insides, kind of what's under the mask, they were really surprised. So I figured this would be a good opportunity to put up a video, kind of show you the inner workings on how I wound up constructing these guys and what the insides are actually made out of. Want to start things off by go ahead and focusing on Necros here, and I'm going to start by just pulling him off of his base. Whoops. Now what you'll notice is the base that I pulled him off of was a regular wing set that I had made for Vicky for the standard Dizzy outfit prior to the big wings coming out. Now this is simply just a set of craft foam feathers over a simple PVC skeleton. Nothing super crazy, but since we had this and it was wearable, it stayed fit to her body. When I created the new guys, I wanted them to mount just completely over the pre-existing wing set to make it easy and not super complicated. Now, taking a look at our boy Necros here, it looks pretty good. I got a nice menacing skull, and to be honest, the skull is probably the hardest part of this entire thing, but again, not too entirely difficult to make. Starting out with, I simply got a store-bought skull that I like the look of. This thing, pretty heavy, weighs a couple of pounds, and since I need to make something that's going to be strapped to my wife's back for long periods of time, I need to make sure I created something that was as light as possible. Now, this guy right here doesn't have any real fancy tech involved with him. Instead, I took this skull and then I covered it with white pearly warbler. And the white pearly warbler is very, it bends and can take a lot of shapes. As opposed to some of the other warblers, it is incredibly flexible and incredibly soft. As a result, it can take in deep ridges, like the eye sockets here, and take in great details like the teeth and gum ridges in here as well. The downside to this is, while it can take these deep impressions, it does get very weak, so you do have to be careful when you're using it. But once I had that shape on there, if I remove the hood, you'll notice inside he's a whole lot of hollow. And again, he is really just a nice shaped warbler shell. Now, once I finished that shell, I didn't need the back of the skull because this particular guy has a hood covering the back of him, which allowed me to basically thread a PVC pipe through the back of him. And then I just took a piece of red plastic, put it up by his eye holes, and then strapped a magnet, taped a magnet to the back of a light, taped a magnet to the PVC pipe, and then boom, you got a skull with a nice light source. Now, that's the headpiece. This is more of a finishing detail. What's really the only real complicated part about this is building the frame to fit on top of the wing harness there. So, working from the top down on this guy, we have the PVC pipe threaded down through here. Now, to form the neck, I just took some fun noodles, which you can see in here, and then wrapped those in a piece of warbler, which I then pressed into to kind of form like a basic neck crease. Nothing really fancy about that at all. And the chest here is just a $10 like muscle chest for kids that you get, like a little He-Man outfit or Superman outfit that you get. And all I did was just spray paint it green. You know, nothing super fancy, nothing crazy technical about it. For the arm, you'll see that I got some fun noodles and I bent those around a piece of pipe that I simply heated and warped into the shape of an elbow. For the arm itself, just stuffed a latex glove, and then just add a little bit of texture to make something else going on here. I just took some craft foam, cut it up into some strips to create a little bit of bulk, kind of like an arm. Again, the sleeve actually covers all this, so it doesn't need to be like an actual form-fitted arm or anything of that nature. All of that basically ran through a piece of PVC pipe, and then let's go ahead and turn this guy's robe over. And the beautiful insides of this guy are simply threaded through a Tupperware container. That's right. I just took a Tupperware container, roughly the same shape as the top of the wings that I have over there, and then the pipe threaded through the center of it, put another piece of pipe on there to stabilize, and this is just to make sure that the wing sits here, and so gravity basically keeps the keeps Necros from falling off. Essentially, the tension with the wing is forced in between these points here, and he can wiggle around just fine, bounce around a little bit, give him some attitude without him actually falling off of the wing. Of course, if Vicky were to lean forward very far, he would of course fall off because there's nothing like actually bolting him to the wing itself. But again, overall, fairly simple in terms of actual design. Now for the other side, I just wanted to add a little bit more going on to his right side. So I just took some pieces of craft foam, cut them into some basically like quarter moon slices, and took a whole bunch of them, glued them together, and slapped them to the side of that bodysuit. This is just to give the effect that his right arm is in the process of turning into some sort of nondescript weapon to, be used on some poor unfortunate soul. Probably Kai, because he's putting the moves on his girl. Anyways, so the in order for these guys to keep their shape, we used a material that we really, really like. I think I have one that is not fully covered. Yeah, right here. This is floral wire. All floral wire is a, as the name suggests, a wire wrapped in a little bit of fabric that you can bend, and it has a pretty rigid structure, so it can actually hold up to a decent amount of weight. It's not super strong, but it allows it to bend and take a bunch of different forms and bend back without causing like permanent creases. So you can basically just bend them a whole bunch in all kinds of different shapes without them snapping or breaking on you. So again, the whole overall design of him, while the outside might look pretty impressive, that's really just a bunch of finishing details that I put on him. And my style of crafting involves a lot of just cheap, easy to get a hold of materials, and just working with them until I can basically achieve the result that I need. Because I go about it a little bit unorthodox, I don't use a lot of pre-planning. I don't print out a lot of templates, do exact measurements. It's definitely not for everybody. Vicky hates the way that I craft, as she is very mathematical in her approach, which is probably the smarter approach, but I like to do things my way. And the way that I have to approach things, because I do operate like this, is I have to think of my objectives. And my objectives on this were, I have a harness already built, I have wings already built that are good, they feel good, and they serve the purpose as what I need to mount the final product to. So when I build the final product, I know that it has to be as lightweight as possible, because these are going to be strapped to the back of my wife on a figure-8 harness, and if they're too heavy, it's going to cut off the blood flow to her arms, and they're going to go dead real soon. She's going to be very upset with me and not have a fun time. And we like to wear our costumes for a long period of time. We don't like to take a lot of breaks, and we make sure they get their use when we're walking the floors. So again, had to make it as streamlined as possible. With that in mind, I need to make sure that every piece that I made was only the outer shell that was going to be seen by the public. Everything else needed to be as bare minimum as possible. Hence, just a single piece of pipe running down the core, a pipe to create the upper skeleton for Necros here, and then a cloak to cover it all. Now, in terms of the metals, these look pretty nice. These are just circular discs of 4mm foam that I heated up to the point where you could make impressions on them, and then took a D&D figure, a dragon actually, and pressed them down in different ways to create nice patterns. And that's just attached on a piece of fishing line. And that's pretty much it for Necros. Thank you very much.